Agent Wei Lin needed all her experience to remain calm because her life was at stake once more. Instinct and experience kicked in when faced with undercover work, where the danger was an ever-present beast. Taking the assignment on had been Wei Lin's choice, a foolhardy act according to her superiors in Chinese intelligence. They had questioned her wisdom when she was so close to retirement, and in retrospect, she knew that her desire for closure and excitement was likely to be her undoing. C'est la vie, as the French might say. Not that she ever learnt that language, but she caught its meaning. Taking down the battered vanity case from its storage locker, Wei Lin placed it upon her bed and unclasped the latches. The clicking of the lock sounded loud in the confines of her metal-walled cabin, and instinctively she froze, looked at the door, which was closed and locked, and she listened. Nothing out of the ordinary. From the vanity case, Wei Lin removed a perfectly innocuous antiperspirant canister. To anyone it was the real deal, nothing sinister. Yet when she squeezed and twisted a small section of the base, it turned 90 degrees and popped off. She turned the base over, and a silver disc the size of a large coin with a slightly raised centre button dropped into the palm of her hand. After pocketing the disc, Wei Lin reversed her actions. She stood before the locked door and contemplated her next move. The homing beacon disc in her pocket would be useless if used in her cabin. There was no way to transmit through all the surrounding steel. Wei Lin needed to be above deck, which would ordinarily prove no trouble, but since the arrival of the helicopter and its occupants, there was real danger of her being recognised for who she really was. Throwing caution to the wind, the Chinese agent opened her door and stepped into the lower level sleeping quarters corridor. The only sounds of life were the rhythmic guttural pulsing of the ship's engines as they turned the mammoth triple screws. Wei Lin strolled through the unadorned wood and steel corridor, doors identical to her own, leading into rooms identical to her own. There was no reason to suspect that the crew might be onto her. After all, she had ingratiated herself within their collective for over 9 months. They knew her only as a competent and worthy seaman, and with a dirty laugh and a sense of humour. She regretted what would be their inevitable arrest and incarceration, because most of them were innocent. But the recent arrival, coupled with the illicit offloading, had deemed her upcoming actions necessary. Not only did the Chinese government need alerting, but who knew how far-reaching this scheme was? The new arrival was a terrorist figure to be feared indeed, and if he saw her, Wei Lin, she would be ruthlessly dispatched. The slip-proof steel flooring made her booted footfalls echo back at her with a foreboding hollowness. Wei Lin turned left at a T-junction, which ended at an open stairwell, allowing ascent or descent. She took the ascent, meeting no one en route, because they were all topside. Her calf and thigh muscles burned painfully when she reached the top, a reminder that she wasn't a young woman anymore, plus the tension she felt. The solid handle on the thick metal door was well greased and turned easily, and Wei Lin was assailed by the humid wind created by the huge cargo container ship's inertia, coupled with their staggering height above the waves. The white foam and wake visible in the starry moonlight. Agent Wei Lin was already sweating profusely, and the tropical night was hot and sultry, and she was dripping. Above her the stars shone gloriously and lit the enormous deck, which stretched on almost to an inconceivable length to her left, where the containers were stacked. It was indeed an awesome sight. To her right, a further staircase ascended. She paused, hand in her pocket, a wave of relief passing over her, but it was too late. She was too late. A muzzle flash sparked brightly like a firework to her right, slightly elevated, followed by a boom which she didn't hear because she was dead already when she toppled off the deck, her death grip on the disc activating the Homer beacon. Charles Robinson was sat up straight in his leather-backed swivel chair at his desk on the 10th floor of MI6 headquarters. He flexed his arthritic fingers above the desk, easing the impending stiffness from them. It had taken him an hour to input the text and back up the top-secret document to the computer, which he promptly deleted after securing the file in the main drive. It was too easy these days for any person with the knowledge to hack even the most secure system, so Robinson was taking no chances. He grinned mirthlessly. Also, this was MI6. Behind Robinson, the broad red door with gold studs, which made it look like some Baroque strawberry, opened and 007 appeared. The agent smiled from something remembered, something imparted by M, the head of the British Secret Service, whose door it was. "You look like the cat," Robinson said. "Who has got the cream?" "It's the Bahamas for me," 007 replied. "I'm jealous, 007. Have a good trip." When the agent with a license to kill had departed the office, Robinson's desk speaker activated and the voice of M emanated from the intercom, instructing Robinson to join him. Robinson had been the previous M's chief of staff and once a field agent, but a knee injury and arthritis had curtailed that particular career. Fortunately, his knowledge and experience had won him the position of assistant to the head of the Secret Service, not a job to be sniffed at. "Please sit down, Charles," M said almost distractedly, a concerned expression etched upon the old man's face. It was unusual for M to refer to his assistant by the informal forename, and Robinson sat opposite his boss and waited expectantly, studying the blue-grey eyes. "2 days ago, Chinese intelligence officer agent Wei Lin's body was washed up on a beach in the Bahamas." Robinson's curiosity was immediately raised, along with his eyebrows, at what M said. "The Chinese government have requested our assistance, and I've dispatched 007. He pointed at a docket upon his desk, sealed with the Eyes Only banner. "I would like you to read this report, Charles, while you accompany 007. Robinson tried to hide his surprise, but failed, feeling a slight unreality kicking in, until, 2 hours later, he was seated next to 007 on the big Boeing outbound from Heathrow. He had packed lightly, mainly owing to the short time frame afforded him. 007 had regarded him politely, but once they were airborne, her headphones were on, eyes closed, and the 00 agent with the license to kill appeared at rest. Which was fine by Charles Robinson, because the agent had always had a certain aloofness, a chip on her shoulder attitude. M's request had been a curious curveball. Robinson hadn't seen much overseas work since his old man's predecessor had passed away. Mentally shrugging to himself, Robinson put in some earphones, selected an easy listening playlist, and slid the seal off the Eyes Only docket. He gradually digested the text, and it soon became clear why the chief had requested he go to the Bahamas too. It wasn't to aid 007 after all, at least not the present iteration. Robinson chastised himself for not putting 2 and 2 together sooner. Must be an age thing, he thought wryly. James Bond had retired to the Bahamas. Chinese agent Wei Lin had been acquainted with Bond during the Elliot Carver affair, and, if Robinson was correct, the two had remained friends for a time afterward. Also, both agents had had dealings with a major figure in the present undercover sting which Wei Lin had been on and killed during. Charles Robinson had only brief dealings with Wei Lin all those years ago, but he knew her as a competent and capable agent. It had been a few years since Robinson had last seen James Bond, despite them keeping in contact. In fact, now he thought about it, he hadn't heard from Bond in months. For all Robinson knew, the ex-secret agent might now be dead, but this worried him only for a split second, because surely M wouldn't send him all these miles if the old man wasn't positive Bond was still alive. It would be good to see James Bond again, to catch up on old times, as well as new times, and warn his old friend that his life might be in danger. Nothing new there then.